Sacred Souljourners, a space where we gather around the fire for storytelling.
This is a journey of spiritual awakening, learning to trust in the universe and aligning to our highest path.
It's through our voices from the perspective of the masculine and the feminine, which is the real-life dance between us, where we are going to share stories about our journey, our triggers, our love, all as we walk with the universe, not against it.
Zan and I are two souls having our human experience who are walking through the fire together with our three dogs. And now we're inviting you in to witness. If you've been feeling the pull to awaken,
then you can finally start to trust.
And then to align to your highest good.
Now, you're exactly where you're meant to be. All right, we're live. Hello, Souljourners. Welcome back to the Sacred Souljourner podcast. We are in Broomfield, Colorado. Zan Kavanaugh, one of your co-hosts.
And I'm Troy Halkner, your other co-host.
This is going to be such a juicy conversation. We are here with some dear soul family, Jen and Brian. And I know these guys because I have been doing Sweat Lodge with them for 6-7 years. And for me, it's always been a very profound experience of transformation. And so this is going to be Troy's virgin experience with the Sweat Lodge. And so we're just going to give you a heads up right now that there are going to be people coming in and out, but that's the Souljourner way. As we do the podcast, people are going to be coming in and out, dogs are going to bark, horns are going to go. We just go with the flow.
Yep. Yeah, we thank Brian and Jen for being here with us tonight. And I was to be able to have supper with Brian the other night, and we talked at the restaurant, and he shared with me a very fascinating way of, and not that I could describe it, and I'm not going to try to define it. I'm going to allow him to explain what we're going to go through tonight. But I've always been fascinated with the Native Americans, even as a pastor for 15 years. From the pulpit, I would tell the church, the Native Americans had it figured out. They had it spiritually. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight with these guys. And we thank y'all for being here tonight. And what a joy to be able to come in your home and y'all invite us in and really appreciate that. We really do. So at this time, Brian is going to be our fire keeper if he'll light the fire.
Very nice. So welcome to the Sacred Souljourners podcast, Jen.
Thank you. It's nice to join you.
And so why don't you just give us a brief overview of when you two moved into this role of hosting these amazing sweat lodges here in Colorado?
Okay, well, that's a long time ago. So I guess you could say the thing that cracked us open was when I got pregnant, and Brian and I were expecting our baby, and it was a time when I was realizing life isn't just going to be about me anymore. Now I have a new life to take care of. And at the time, when 2008, the world felt really scary.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my, let's just say, spiritual awakening when Blaze was born.
Mm-hmm.
And he was named by the sun. So he got his name from the sun because it shined on his head as he was birthing, and a really magical, special moment. So that was how he got his name. And then all of a sudden, our lives changed rapidly and radically. And so we stumbled across some things we were watching just to kind of understand how to navigate the world in a better way. And that led us to the Star Knowledge conferences with Chief Golden Light Eagle. And then that led us to the Sundance ceremonies led by Chief Golden Light Eagle. And so we went to our first Sundance, and Brian pledged to Sundance, and that was an interesting year for us. So the following year, I believe, was when Brian Sundanced for the first time. Okay, he's saying the year after that, but it's kind of a blur because it was kind of a while ago.
Well, let me just hold for a second. So this podcast is for the spiritually curious. So they don't know what Sundance is. How would you describe Sundance to people who've never even really seen this side of, Native American culture, or maybe they've heard it, or maybe they saw it, right, on Dances with the Wolves? It's kind of this something out there. But I want you to just also say that Jen and Brian are white. They are white people, but they sing beautifully. So if you could, just dip into that a little.
To try and And kind of put it in a quick nutshell, Sundance is the highest ceremony. The chief said the white buffalo calf woman gave to the Native American, the Plains Indians, the Indigenous of Turtle Island. And of those seven sacred ceremonies, the Sweat Lodge being one. There's naming ceremonies. There's ceremonies where they tie the medicine man up. And then there's Sundance. And Sundance is, we would do this ceremony over summer solstice. And so, but it was a good 12-day long ceremony. And on average, probably around 100 people would come and participate. And so you had the dancers inside of the big round circle, which is called the arbor, and it has a tree in the middle, and on that tree are a lot of prayers in the form of prayer ties, prayer flags, things like that. The male sun dancers typically will pierce their skin, their chest, something of that nature, to ropes that are tied to the tree. And so, yeah, it's the first time we saw and experienced that. It was really intense, and
to say the least.
Yeah, and so, after Sundance was over, Chief's brother came up, and he was an arbor chief. He came up to all the people that had been supporting that whole time and said, if you feel it in your heart to dance next year, please come in and smoke the chanupa. And my first thought was like, that's crazy. I would never do that. But my heart was pounding out of my chest. And this voice said, he didn't ask you if you thought it was a good idea. He asked if you felt it in your heart. And I hadn't felt my heart responding and pounding like that in a long time. And that was a big part of our prayer and journey at the time, where we were really, trying to dig deep and become the best people we could for this beautiful boy that showed up in our life, that the sun shined on his head, in the middle of a cloudy day. And it was so that did lead us into, eventually I sundanced, and then I sundanced for a number of years. But it was during that time when Chief passed the bucket, is kind of what they call it, and said, hey, you need to start pouring, and really started to insist that I learn the songs and start singing for him in ceremonies and Sweat Lodge and that type of stuff. So I didn't realize leading up to all of that at the time that that's literally, you're getting groomed to carry these ways forward, because they're going to get lost if we don't teach them, if they're not, carried on. He was discouraged at how many people he knew that knew all of the ceremonies and how to make the regalia and the songs, but they weren't doing it. And it's one of the reasons he called me his nephew, because I was willing to learn and hear and sing and participate. So, but once that happened, it was hard to come home, not have a sweat lodge, all of those types of things. And so that's when I told Chief, yeah, I think I'm going to build a sweat lodge in the backyard. And he's all, if you build it, they will come. And so, but that's just part of what you accept when you, step into this, is we're just stewards of this Anipi ceremony, this lodge. It doesn't belong to us.
Right. Well,
can I share just a little bit more about the Sundance and just the transition there? So, there's a lot happening in Sundance, and the piercing part it's part of the prayers, and it's part of the Sundance. And it's a really powerful part of the Sundance, where people are choosing to sacrifice their flesh to honor their prayers. So it's like a giveaway. But there's a lot more happening in Sundance, and really the whole intention of doing a Sundance is to pray in your next year for your life. And so it's like being able to go into the future and pull in what you want to see happen in your life for the next year.
Kind of like a prayer of intention.
Very much so. So there's 4 days of the actual dance, and that's that one. So the 4 days represent the 4 seasons. So day one, you're praying in like 3 months. The next day, you're praying in the next 3 months, and so on and so on and so on. And so it's very important when you're sun dancing to be very intentional the entire time, because every thought creates something in your future. And so it's an opportunity to heal, to bring balance, to bring support, resources, anything that you need for your family. So that's why they do it. And so we were very blessed and very humbled and honored to be brought in. Chief Golden Light Eagle was an all nations altar, so everybody was welcome. So that's why, he opened it up to us. as white people, as you mentioned. And he just had a very generous heart and a very generous way. And he really wanted to bring people in to start doing that ceremony because it was starting to be lost. And so, but yeah, that led into us, creating the Inipi, the sweat lodge that we have here. I went on to Sundance as well. So I danced 3 years. My 4th year was going to be the year, unfortunately, when Chief dropped his robe. So I didn't get to complete my 4-year commitment. So when we're doing these Inipis, because we're working with the altar that was passed to us, which is the Star Knowledge altar, which is the ways of the Earth Star calendar, we prepare for the Sundance by doing what we call the moon walk. And so when we're going into ceremony for the Inipi, the sweat lodge, we're working with all the lunar influences each month through the year as we're living the prayer, but then also creating our pathway to the next Sundance. And so our Sundance has changed because we're not able to attend Sundance. Chief is no longer with us, but we still do the work. We still do the moons, the influences of the moons every cycle. So we work on the new moon, the quarter moons, and the full moons when we're going into Sweat Lodge and working with that Earth Star calendar. And so that's what you've gotten to experience with us, Zan.
And I want to just point it out that I've done a lot of different sweats around the country, but you two are my favorite. Every time they both bring in information that's pertinent to the time. So whatever I'm going through at that time, you always nail it. You bring in whatever ancestors are coming in. We did one with Layla when she passed. That was my pit bull. Mm-hmm. And she came in as a messenger for us. And I got to see her spirit after she had passed in the sweat. So they're very profound to the heart. And it feels like a testimony to yourself and what you need to move through. And I take it very seriously. It's the one ceremony that I just could not do without. And in Florida, I was very sad because you guys were not in Florida. And it was very challenging. So I'm very grateful that we are here with you today and that Joy gets to experience it.
Yeah, I got questions. In other words, in all honesty, last thing I want to do is dishonor anything. I do not want to do that. That's one of the major transformations that's in my life is, many people find peace in different ways. And however someone can find their way, who am I to dishonor that or disagree with it? Or, I think it's awesome what y'all have done here and what you're doing. And I can see the realness in your heart with it. That's what the chief saw too. This ain't a game to you. This is the real deal. My question is, what can I do to prepare myself to be able to go in there tonight?
So Chief was one of the most gentle men pouring a lodge that I had experienced, as far as you get a chance over the years to experience different people pour differently, sing differently, kind of go through the order. And some do get it pretty hot in there. And he always had so much compassion. And he would share stories of going to Sundance and being asked to help pour lodges for the people. And the people initially were always lined up at the one chief's lodge, and nobody was going over to, Chief Golden Light Eagle. And by the end of the ceremony, almost everybody was going into Chief Golden Light Eagles and not very many going into the original chiefs. And somebody asked, why is everybody going over there? And they said, well, because he's compassionate. And that always stuck with me. It wasn't easy for me to get into the sweat lodge initially. I grew up with asthma, allergies. I considered myself a little on the claustrophobic side. So there was a lot of hesitation. And wasn't super excited to jump in that sweat lodge. I was super curious, but had a lot of fear behind it. And it still took me a number of sweat lodges to get comfortable myself. But knowing how good he took care of everybody, and I watched him bring in new people, sick people, elders, plenty of people that had lots of experience with lodges and might have wanted it spicier, hotter, this or that, but he could read the room. He could read the energy in the room, and he knew that, everybody's safety in there depends on him being not in his ego. And that's one of the beautiful things. We're all sitting in there heart to heart. And if there was a man who could read the heart energy in the room, and anything that was happening outside of that. I mean, he was really talented at that. And so I guess what he would always tell people, and he'd spark a little controversy with us, but he's like, there's no rules. I want you to come in and be in your heart. If I start telling you how to prepare and I tell you this, expect this or expect that, he's like, all of a sudden now you're in your head.
Well, where I am right now, I don't know what to expect. Never been in one.
Sure.
I'm curious, just like you, your first time.
Mm-hmm.
And all day today, I've kind of had the attitude of meditation about it, and I'm just going to go in with an open mind and an open heart and just allow what happens.
Perfect.
I don't know what else to do.
Perfect. Yeah.
So that's exciting. You mentioned the other night that you had come from the Baptist faith.
Mm-hmm.
And spiritually, how has it made a difference in your life as far as being more in tune or more aligned with the Creator?
I would say that it has expanded my understanding or belief, spectrum of what God is, who God is, how God is in all things. But through all things, there's a consciousness. And one of the things that became so profound to me spending time with Chief over the years is they could tell when a bird was speaking to them. Just like you talked to me about this owl that you can just tell there's a dialogue happening. And well, they're really attuned. I met some that were just incredibly attuned, and even recognizing when a stone
Really?
had consciousness. And it's one thing to be like, be told this is a conscious stone, or I don't know. It's kind of a long story, but it's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But this stone, it turns out that this isn't uncommon in the Native American traditions. There's a lot of these stones that come, and they use them in ceremony, and they're doctoring stones, healing stones. They can do things. And so the first time I'd heard about them, I'd seen about them, and it's like, yeah, that's nice. And feathers are medicine. We went and gathered rocks and wood one evening, and there was a Chief's brother was with me, and he's like, Brian, look at this one. And I'm standing on hundreds and hundreds of rocks. I'm like, which one? And he reaches up and he grabs it and he throws it to me, and his eyes are all big, and he says, oh, you need to put that on your altar. I was like, okay. So we brought it home and got the fire together and everything else, and I put that stone that he told me to put on the altar, put that on my altar. About time for lodge to get started, Chief comes out, and I said, oh, look at this stone John said I need to put on the altar. And Chief's eyes got real big, and he said, oh, that's a good one. You got to bring that in to lodge tonight with you and pray with it. I said, okay. So everybody got in. I grabbed that stone off the altar, came in, and just put it. He's like, pray with it. When you're done praying with it, put it in the bucket of water. And so, I did. Prayed with it, just love, gratitude, it's kind of my general prayer. But I put it in that bucket, and he said, we're going to sing a song to honor the stone nations, the Tunka Oyate. And so we sang a stone honoring song, and we get done with that, and he says, that's a doctoring stone. It wants to give you a doctoring. It wants to give you a healing. It wants you to pull it out of the water and put it wherever you need that doctoring. It's going to heat up. I'm like, okay, so it's pitch black, and I'm reaching around in this 5-gallon bucket of water that might have 10 inches of water in it. And I find this stone. This stone's about the size of a baseball, a little bit bigger than a baseball, maybe. Pretty round. So I find it, and just like grabbing a rock out of a river, just it's cold rock and cold water. But before I got it out of the water, that thing got so hot in my hand, I could barely hold on to it by the time I got it out of the water. Like I said, 10 inches of water. So it happened so fast. And my brain just kind of split in half a little bit. I'm like, what's going on here? How do they know this? How does this happen? What's working here? And then I was like, you're supposed to be giving yourself a doctor. Gosh, the neck's been a little sore. Oh yeah, the hernia. And gosh, where don't I hurt? So rubbing this stone all over my body and pass it around. But it's experiences that I had like that were so eye-opening that there's a dialogue and an understanding going on here. And if it's not done in a good way, it doesn't work. Right. People have to be in the right intentions and heart space, loving, and that's when they come.
I'm going to ask a question. Since you guys have been doing this, and why I love this conversation is that you two have been married for, you said 25 years. You have to be conscious as a couple doing this work. How has that supported your marriage? Where I think a lot of people just are, dealing with their own inner traumas and, trying to work through stuff. Is it raised the bar for you as a couple?
Well, 25 years is a long time. And like I said, when I got pregnant and life was going to be changing really soon, I had to get my act together. I had no choice. I was about to give birth to a son, a blazing son. His name is Blaze, who is a star child who needed parents that, could support his path.
Right.
And so we were catapulted into like a pretty strong trauma in our marriage because we were walking so out of alignment with ourselves, with each other. And it was like God just put his finger on our shoulders and zapped us and said, you've got to get it together. And he provided an experience for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, cascaded into a reality where we had to do major, major, major healing personally and in our marriage. And that was kind of where we landed in finding other modalities. We got into a mystery school and we were learning about practical magic. We were learning about all different types of magic, fire magic. But the one I think that was probably the biggest for me was the ritual magic, which brought in the concept of shadow work. So that was the first time I ever heard of shadow work. And that sort of, I think, became the impetus of my entire healing journey was, really looking at my own shadows, doing the work to integrate them. And that was a pretty long, I would say it was, it's still, of course, it never ends. It's still ongoing. But, like 10 solid years of me really having to do a lot of deep, deep, deep inner work.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, that helped Brian and I to just have a new language, a new understanding of each other, where our wounds are.
Mm-hmm.
And how our wounds affect each other and how our wounds tell us what we can and cannot do, what we can and cannot have, and just, really understanding ourselves more on a deeper level and our own personal needs and how to communicate them so that we could, try and come back together again. Because honestly, it was probably one of those experiences where most people wouldn't stay together. And we chose to stay together and do the work. And so through the ways of doing shadow work, through the mystery school and things like that, plus going to Sundance and different ceremonies, it was a lot, and it is a lot. And so all through that whole journey till now, absolutely is my ascension,
Right.
And so like I wasn't spiritual at all when I met Brian. I wasn't.
Really?
Not at all.
Oh, wow.
No, I was a Harley riding rebel chick, with Jack Daniels in one hand and the flipping the bird in the other one, like I was hell on wheels. And people were taking bets when I was going to die on my Harley because I was so wild. And so, I needed to get grounded in order to support Blaze. Mm-hmm. And so, he really changed our path. And that's actually, he's the glue that kept us together because we knew we needed to stay together for him. But, we're still learning. We're still going through our own stuff. We still have wounds that pop up and slap us around. And, it's been a long journey and it's, continues.
And so do you guys have a sacred container, if you will? Like when your wounds pop up, do you set aside like a safe space to communicate, or what's something that you do? We'd love to hear when, something arises and it just fires its head.
We don't come at it super consciously in the moment. We know how to read the room. We know how to read each other. We try and meet each other where we're at. I try and meet Brian where he's at in his trigger. And he does the same for me. And so what that might look like is we're not talking right now. Okay, I'm going to go in the other room. I'm going to go do that, whatever, and so we kind of give each other space and get our thoughts together and then, wait for that moment that feels right to actually have a conscious communication about it. And so, that can look like just, being in a quiet space and really being reverent with each other and acknowledging there needs to be a big level of compassion right now.
Jen and I have sat in the fire with each other enough times in the hottest of topics. And so I'm like having to think about this because it doesn't happen a lot. We really get along pretty darn well, but we have our moments, and we respect each other a lot, and we allow each other to be, he's really triggered right now because of this or that or the other thing. And she'll give me the time to process it and not try to needle it out of me or try to make me define something that's palatable to her and vice versa. And we just try and honor and give each other space. And then we know that neither one of us are wanting to hurt each other. And then when we're treading those waters, sometimes you're going to get triggered. You're just gonna. But you can't attack the other person because all of a sudden your feelings are hurt or you're feeling a trigger. And I think we've come to really appreciate that and recognize, okay.
Well, it's this conversation's so rich and deep. And so part of tuning back into why we're here tonight, we're about to go do the Sweat Lodge, right? And we're doing these moon cycle influences and talking about what's coming on deck for us tonight with this new moon and this next cycle. Well, every moon carries a test. And so we are activating that information the minute we honor this new moon in ceremony. And so that test is designed to trigger you. So the moon is the shadow work. It's going into the mystery. It's going into the depths. It's going into your emotional body, the moon, the flow. And so now we've been doing this for so long. One of the voices in my head was Grandmother Silverstar. She's like, know your tests. And I was like, that sounds potent. And so now when you know the test, so that month cycle will show you kind of, oh, this is what's going to be happening this month. And so you can be ready for it, right. If you're conscious around it. And so when you're not, it happens either way, whether you're conscious of it or not. So now not only are we kind of dealing with our own inner child stuff, the old stuff, the traumas and wounds and stuff like that, but then, we're actually inviting another leveling up as we activate these codes and the information coming into these lodges and going into ceremony. And you don't have to go into a sweat lodge to do this. You can follow these ways any way you want to. And you can follow them without even really realizing that you are, because it's so amazing to me. I'll run into somebody and they're having the exact same test and they're not in our circle. And so, we kind of invite that in. And that's also just one more way that God is working on us in our ascension. And so, I just wanted to share that part too.
Yeah. So on top of that, one more question is, so your day job is working with people that are separating. What is that like for you as this conscious, beautiful healer and leader? And then you're dealing with people who are going through the 3D struggles. Like, how is that for you?
It's a very interesting polarity. And that's where I can really, Troy, you work with the owl. I carry an owl name. So my name is Beautiful Blue Owl Woman, Hiha Towash Dewi. That was the name that the chief brought to me through spirit, through my Humblecha, which is Vision Quest. I got my name on my first trip on the hill, started working with the owl medicine. And so owl medicine for me is being able to work in multiple dimensions at the same time. And so it's like, I can be in the mystery, I can be in the light, I can do them simultaneously, or I can fragment and, choose where I'm going to operate. But, having a really 3D job is what I call it, a very intensely mind-influenced job. It's tough to balance the heart with it, right? Because not only is a divorce a legal process, but it's also a very, very emotional one. And so, that to me is two dimensions, because it's the mind and the heart that are trying to navigate this process. And so I tether my day job with, reminding myself that I need to be in my heart still, and I can meet people where they're at when they call me or when I'm working with them. And so I think maybe that might set me apart from other practitioners in the legal field, where I just have a sense of where people are at emotionally, and I can do my own work to not take it on and be able to hold it and be able to help them sort of, I coach them a lot through getting them back up into a place where they can make really, really big decisions that affect the rest of their life, even though they are absolutely blindsided and devastated. And so it's a tricky job, and it's not an easy job. But, I feel like I'm part of this movement in how the divorce process is actually evolving, and just witnessing so many people are getting divorced because they probably are having a spiritual awakening.
Right.
And because they're realizing like life is very different and I don't even know who I am anymore.
Right.
And they're willing to look at it and they want to do it on a new path.
And you're like, oh, by the way, also do this. So once the divorce is done,
yeah,
it seems like you're straddling two different arenas, but you're an angel doing the work. I mean, it feels what a contrast that is.
I got to brag on her just a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
Just,
go for it.
As a tribute to the shadow work that she's done, and really owning, where we're a mess ourselves, but the healing that we've gone through in our relationship. Jen's a certified divorce coach. She just got done doing a mediation training. Her interest in helping people really understand the emotional journey that they're in, because it is such an important time in your life that you want to make good decisions long term, but when the emotions get so fired up, it can really have you making some really irrational choices and decisions.
Don't we know that?
And then people really find themselves in a bad place. And so Jen's just so good on understanding the law piece, but all the way up to the spiritual piece, like, how we need to treat each other and ourselves and the healing process that goes through it. She's just exceptional at asking powerful questions, and the compassion and gentleness that she has is real. So anyway,
Jen, are you exclusive to Colorado? Let's just say somebody across the nation is listening to this and they want to work with you. Is that something that you could do, or are you just here?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm certified nationally for the divorce coaching.
Okay.
And actually globally, as long as we can talk in English.
Right.
But for handling like legal matters, I'm only licensed to practice family law in Colorado.
Okay.
And then just one thought that popped into my head, just to kind of crescendo the question you asked me before, because I was asking myself, like, what am I doing here in this realm? Like, this isn't happy, fun butterflies and unicorns. Like, I want to be at Sundance. I don't want to be sitting in a courtroom.
Right.
Well, so one day I had that kind of like, what am I doing here? And all of a sudden I hear this voice in my head. Spirit says, now you know who to pray for. So there are days when my job is very tough. And especially when it comes to the kids, I'll get off the phone with somebody and I can really feel the kids.
Right.
So I'll actually step out and I'll go make prayer ties for the kids.
And what is a prayer tie for people that are listening that don't know?
Well, I mean, it's part of the process of ceremony. When we Sundance, this is something that was passed down to us. And it's basically taking fabric and praying with tobacco. And you put the tobacco inside the fabric, whether that's a square or a long strip. And you've got that little, you bundle it up. You kind of make a little bundle it with the tobacco inside the fabric and you tie it. So we call them prayer ties. And so that's, there's lots of ways that you can work with that. Lots of different types of ties, lots of different flags. And yeah, that's a whole conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. And in the essence of time, do you have any questions for them before we go to the fire?
I do not have any questions. I just wanted to thank y'all for this time and thank you for tonight. And what an honor to be able to do this and to share this with you and for entrusting me to be here. What a blessing. Thank you so much.
And so we usually wrap up the podcast by leaving something in the fire. And since you guys understand this moon cycle, what kind of invitation do we have to put in the fire? Is it something that we should release, do you think, or is it something that we want to bring into our life?
Well, I want to first say thank you so much for your reverence and for coming in open and in your hearts. And also for me, it's important that we honor the ancestors that we've worked with in the past who have literally risked their lives to protect these ways. So I want to honor the ancestors that came before us and all the elders that pass along these teachings and just admit that Brian and I, we're just common people. We're not special. We're not claiming to be anything other than we're here as humans and we're trying to do work for the human protection and advancement and love. and for Mother Earth too. So I just needed to honor that. And so tonight we're bringing in the energy of the corn moon. So it's Wagamaizawi, this corn woman, and she works with nourishing the people and, kind of that energy of, there's enough abundance here on this earth for everybody. And yet we're still seeing people on this earth that are starving.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're very out of balance. And so, we're out of balance in ourselves. We're out of balance in our communities, our families, our government, our politics, like all of it. Everything just feels so out of balance. And so it's a really good time, I think, to have that as part of our intention tonight, is just to bring back balance. But it's the spiritual law of choice. And choice is one of our most powerful gifts we have as a human. Because
I'm just laughing because I just actually brought that up during my labyrinth walk today.
Right.
So.
Well, see, you're already in it and you didn't even know, right? Isn't that awesome? Right. And so just reminding ourselves that we have the ability to choose at any moment. You can choose your misery, your suffering, your devastation, or you can choose beauty and growth and love and expansion. So it's let's call I want to let go. Maybe what I'll put in the fire is just, for me to be back in balance, I want to put in the fire my grief.
Mm-hmm.
My sorrow, the feeling of loss. I've had a lot of loss this year. I've lost my mom, my nephew. We just had another loss today. And so it's I want to kind of put some grief into the fire so that can be transmuted, so that I can feel a little lighter, because it's good to make choices from places, that you're vibing high.
Yes. Thank you.
You had asked how our marriage, through all the things, has it made us stronger, and does it make it easier? I don't know if there is such a thing, right? But we absolutely love each other. And if there's one thing that you can really get out of some of the ceremonies, like Sundance in particular, is the sacredness. And that word sacredness, I guess, before it was really defined to me one year at Sundance, that if somebody had said, well, what do you think sacred is? I would think, well, I guess it's maybe a religious term or something, but it wouldn't have been personal.
Mm-hmm.
When it became personal and I understood that everything that you hold sacred should be placed somewhere and protected, valued, recognized, reminded, polished, cleaned, loved. And when we forget and we neglect that which is sacred in our lives, our chances of losing it shoot through the roof, because somebody deserves it and is meant to experience it. And I feel like so much of life is learning what's sacred. What's sacred to you, and what's worth your sacrifice and your giveaway, and what are you going to do for what's sacred to you? And I think we're all getting pushed to a place where we need to define that for ourselves,
right,
as a community. But it's our community, I think, that has been a huge part of what's held us up together as a couple, that we've been able to be there as a support system for so many of those that come as well. So we have several new people here tonight.
Yeah.
And so everybody's excited to go get out there, and the weather's cooperating. So
right, we got the rain.
I would like to so we all get that voice in our head that says, you're not good enough. You did this. You'll never get redemption for that. I want to put that story in the fire. The need for that story.
Yeah. Wise man.
I've got this. What I want to put in the fire tonight is something, we've been looking at this where we're at with the eclipse, and they was talking about how this is a time to release. And one of the things that I've recognized the most and come into coming, I don't like saying awakened. I like saying coming home. And in coming home, the process of doing the shadow work, the process of getting to where you look at the inner works of why you do and react, and has not been an easy one. That's kind of, when you go through your awakening, everything's going to be good. No, it don't work that way. And I'm not trying to be discouraging about it, because it's very rewarding when you truly go to it in an authentic way and you start looking and becoming aware. One of the things that I'm aware of is there's a rage that comes in me sometimes. I'm a man's man. I get pissed off. And it gets in the way of me being my higher self. It really does. The other night I witnessed her being scared of it, and I hated that. That pierced me. And I just got to release that. Just release that rage, because it's not serving me. It's not serving my family. It's not even serving my dogs. And I'm going to throw that into the fire tonight and just release it. And I don't know how. I don't know. But I've been feeling it for 2 days that something's coming. I can feel it. And I'm looking forward to it. The pain that I have to go through because of it, it don't matter if I come out the other side. All right, baby doll, what are you throwing in the fire?
Yeah, so I walked the labyrinth, and it was about that choice. And I had a reactive moment this morning. I feel like, was it Bart Simpson when they gave him a cupcake, and every time he ate it, it shocked him? He just kept eating the cupcake and shocking him. That's kind of how I feel about reaction versus responding. And for me, it's about just staying in that peaceful state within myself so that other people can do their things and it won't affect my peace. And so in the fire, I really want to release any additional energies that are provoking me, because it is not about him. It is not about other people. It is about what I can do within myself. So I'm releasing that into the fire. Yes. Well, we could talk for hours, but we got to get ready to go to Lodge right now. So thank you, everybody, for witnessing this beautiful conversation with my dear, sweet friends. Is there anything you want to leave with people who are curious about sweat?
Well, about Sweat Lodge, I mean, I guess if you're invited, say yes.
Yeah.
But also know what you're getting into as well. Our lodges are different, So it's all about just follow your heart. If Spirit's putting something in your path, pay attention to it. If you're being led to something, pay attention to it, but also use very, very strong discernment.
Yeah.
That's a very important part of it. And just, use your discernment to tune in and ask, is this where I'm supposed to be? What do I need to see here? What do I need to know? And just kind of be in that curious space.
Curious space. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say something pretty similar. Discernment's such an important frequency that we all have an antenna within us to be able to tune in. And we all know, we've all experienced it before. We've all sat in a room and somebody comes into the room quietly, but you can just feel the energy. You can just feel the presence. You turn around and you notice, somebody walked in the door even though they were quiet. Or you walk into a room and the air's thick, so you can tell they've either been arguing or, maybe even been saying something about you, but you just feel it. You don't have to have heard anything. And this is that very muscle, that intuitive, your discernment muscle. Learn your frequency and trust it. Trust the law of attraction. If something is pulling you towards it and it feels good, curious, trust that. And when you sense something is not right, trust it, listen to it. It's trying to warn you. Something's trying to pull you in, something's trying to push you away. And anyway.
Yeah, we were just talking about that too, which is really that inner knowing instead of the external. It's just being hammered through all of our conversations right now to just go within with all the knowledge that's out there. Going through this lodge is an opportunity to look within, because you're basically in the dark and they have stones in the middle and you put medicine on the stones, cedar and tobacco and things. And that's all you see. And you're in the dark with yourself and you got nowhere to go. And so that's your opportunity. That's the best cell phone ever. Oh, the songs. Oh, I wish you could hear the songs that these two sing. It's absolutely divine.
Well, yeah. And, along with my work in family law and divorce coaching, I'm also a certified breakthrough shadow coach and a heal your heart coach. And I was trained in the Ford Institute. Debbie Ford wrote the book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. That was the book that changed my life when I started my journey. And so I was so inspired by the book and just my own transformational process through the coaching program itself that I became certified in those modalities. And so I can help people really identify their deepest shadows and, kind of the behaviors that sort of get triggered to activate when we get in our shadows. And it's really beautiful work. it also brings in the forgiveness.
Mm.
And that's one of the most important things I think we need on a spiritual journey is learning how to forgive ourselves. And that's probably the hardest thing for people to do.
Yeah.
And that's why that's like the last session, because we got to do some work to get you there. But yeah, so you can find me at berryhillfamilylaw.com or Jen at berryhillfamilylaw.com. But yeah, I would love to support anybody that's kind of resonating with this conversation and wanting to find out more. So yeah, thank you.
That is so cool. Well, we just, again, thank y'all for coming. And we just want to close with understanding that releasing what we said we was going to release in the fire tonight. May our guides be there. May they help us, because releasing sometimes not an easy thing. And as we walk the journey after we do, may we seek our higher selves and becoming who we are meant to be. And so with that said, ease and grace.
Love and light.
Good night.
Thank you.